Hey Dave, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So to get started, can you give the audience a little bit of your history in design?
Sure, be happy to. So I started designing when I got out of school. I had gone to school originally for graphic design. I wandered upstairs one day and found industrial design. I switched majors. I came out of school with a degree in industrial design. I moved to California in 1994, and the web was just starting to happen at that time. So I sort of thought, well, this is a really interesting marriage between the two disciplines. And I learned HTML, and the rest is relative history. I've been designing for screens ever since,
Hmm.
starting with websites, later e-commerce sites and web applications, and then doing client applications. I got to the opportunity to work on embedded UIs on physical devices, and even some just completely physical device product work while I was at Frog Design. Subsequent to that, my career has taken me in a trajectory that is, brought me towards bigger and bigger design objectives. So moving from sort of the artifact level of design, the tactical specific design, entity, a website, to things like systems, and later into things like design transformation, digital transformation.
Gotcha. And I think one of the areas that you're now focused on and is definitely growing is design transformation that you mentioned. Can you explain to the audience what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So businesses, okay, generally go through at some point in their trajectory transformations, and
Yeah.
maybe it's incremental, right? It might be, we're going to make a slight change to the way we're organized, or we're going to make a slight change to, a particular process. Um, Transformation isn't one thing, right? It could be a complete business transformation, and the organization saying we want to change how we do business, and we are going to now move in this completely different direction. It could be a digital transformation. I worked on several of those while I was at McKinsey, for instance, and
Sure.
it could be, really just how do we incorporate technology into these processes in order to make those processes better. Um, whether you think of design as a subset of technology or digital, or whether you think of design as being a part of, really it should be part of everything. A design transformation is something that companies can go through. And there are numerous examples that I can think of off the top of my head where a company's gone through a design transformation. Has been a very positive thing.
Dave, do you have any examples of successful design transformations or maybe unsuccessful transformations or fields that are kind of leading design transformations?
Absolutely. A successful transformation that I like to be able to point to is Google. Google started absolutely as an engineering driven organization,
Yeah.
right? Let's make search really good and work really well for everyone. And so for years, their design had been essentially, well, in many of our opinions, I don't want to say that it was the worst, but it wasn't particularly good. At a certain point, they began to hire designers because they knew that from the ground up they needed help to sort of move in a different direction.
Yeah.
They had a lot of really good people helping really early on, folks like Irene Au, and some other very good people who joined the organization and attempted to make changes, and that laid the groundwork for where they are today, which is that if they haven't completely transformed themselves into an organization that thinks about design, they have to a large degree. And it's not fair to say that they're necessarily, transformed or not transformed. I think transformation is often on a spectrum versus
Right.
necessarily a black or white.
Hmm.
So they are on a path towards having greater design throughout the organization in many, many ways. And it culminates with things like material, right? The material design language. The fact that
Absolutely.
if I look at my Pixel phone, or if I look at Gmail or Google Maps, I'm seeing really good design, and there are really good designers working in all these different groups in order to achieve that level of design. So that's a really positive and good example, I think, of a design transformation.
For someone maybe looking to transition, maybe they're on a product team, an experienced designer, and they want to get into leading change, be it in their own organization and really moving design up a notch on the maturity level, or join a consultancy and lead that change. How would you recommend they um, advance from maybe just an individual contributor level to actually like powering through and making design heard and felt at the C-suite level?
Yeah, I mean, if they're individuals who are in a given product organization, looking to look past the individual touch point of the product itself to the myriad touch points that might surround the product is one good way just to start to think more broadly and systemically about how they're approaching the design work that they're doing in that given location. I always recommend to more junior designers that they should join a consulting firm of some kind. I found, my experience at Frog Design, I was there for about 5 years, was almost like I got paid to go to grad school for design, because not only was I working with some of the best designers I've ever worked with, but I was looking across numerous different clients and seeing, numerous different kinds of problems, both the ones that I was dealing with directly and ones that colleagues would deal with, because we'd have like open crits in some cases. So I get to see sort of a lot of different things. So I recommend consulting work for younger designers, and ideally in a kind of a design studio. So you get sort of both the craft of design. You can sort of develop the craft of design alongside, seeing different ideas and different problems. Having worked at McKinsey for 5 years and having helped to establish the design consulting practice there, so I was the 8th designer hired at McKinsey.
Oh, wow.
And we had to hire, I think it's something like 400 designers worldwide now. I think I interviewed at least the first 100 designers. I just was on the phone with a lot of people trying to bring people in addition to doing design work. McKinsey is, because it's a very old firm and a very well-established firm and full of razor sharp and smart people, they tend to get more substantive work. And oftentimes businesses are not necessarily thinking design first, but they're thinking, hey, we need to engage in something substantial here. So let's bring McKinsey in, and they can help us to do the thing we need to do. And it just so happens that at a point when I joined, McKinsey had made a conscious decision, again, top down, hey, we want to have design. And what does that really mean? And what does that mean for our clients? And how do we incorporate that in the process of the work that we're doing from a more traditional management consulting perspective? But later, it very much got embedded in and was part of thinking about digital transformation, right? Because honestly, you can't not have user experience designers or visual designers working on projects like that. You've got to have design as a component. So it just became very apparent very early on. And so working at a firm like that, can be a great place to really engage at a deeper level than sort of just on a product or even a systemic level. Anything
you'd like to mention as we wrap up here?
No, I mean, I think that that design is always going to be around. I think that if we can work closely with the tools that we have at our disposal, the better off we're going to be. So one of my favorite stories is, Garry Kasparov was a chess master, right? A grandmaster in chess. Got beaten by the bots, right? The Watson or whichever one of the bots came in and beat him. And he said, look, so instead of like giving up and saying, I'm never going to play chess again, he said, look, I'm going to approach this a different way. And he put a couple of grandmasters together with its own bot or their own bots. And what they found is that combination was unbeatable, right? No bot or individual grandmaster could beat that combination. So it behooves us as designers to understand the tools, okay, and understand how to incorporate those tools into the work we do. Same with transformation. It behooves us as designers to get behind and understand as much about whatever the sort of the business issues or organizational issues are in order to be able to help to affect the right changes in the construct of a transformation.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.